G'day and welcome to the ZiggyD Weekly, the show where I give you guys a news recap from the week gone by, what's coming up in terms of content for this next week, and where at the end I answer some questions sent in by you guys. So I'm still tinkering with the format of this show, so I've changed things up a little bit this week, and I'm going to be giving you guys full screen cam, and then switching between some, maybe some gameplay footage, probably of my Infernal Marauder, which is very close to completion. So let's jump straight into the news for this week just gone by. First thing is that my Infernal Marauder, I'm still trying to get 5 linked Moroi Urki, and that's kind of the final thing I want to do before I make this final build guide. Now I'm saving up my fusings, I only have like 40 at the moment. I'm going to get like 100 or 200 or something, and then I'm going to all in one go try and roll those to get 5 linked. And if I don't get 5 linked after that, probably just going to go ahead and make the build guide, because the build's actually going pretty well despite not having that 5 link setup. Currently using the Moroi as a 4 link, and it's going alright, as you guys will probably see in the footage. Now, in other news for that same build, I dropped Blood Magic and picked up mana in terms of how I'm casting my abilities and things like that, and that's allowed me to run a few extra auras. I did an explanation video on that, which you guys can check out. I'll leave a link in the description, or it's, if you go back over the past week's content, you can check that out, and that explains how to go about dropping Blood Magic, how to make mana work for your build if you've been a Blood Magic build before, and the reasons why it's worth doing that in terms of auras and things like that. So that's pretty cool. So that final build guide is coming. Hopefully I can get that out this week, at the end of this week, or maybe the start of next week. But I'll look forward to that. The build's going pretty well. I'm feeling pretty confident in maps now. So the next thing is that last week I started a new series with a friend named Duke, who we're rolling new characters in Onslaught. Now I've had a lot of requests in the past to either do guides for how to make builds that work with your friends, how to play together in a group, and also just to show how to progress through the game more completely. Now I'm not really a big fan of just doing let's plays, so I've tried to make this series as educational as possible. So every half an hour or as often as possible we're talking about what we're doing, we're giving random tips as we go, and I'm just trying to show as much as possible the process and everything that goes into that. I'm still trying to work out how to exactly go about doing the series the best, but so far people seem to be enjoying it. At the time of putting this video up, there should be about 3 episodes of that, so you can go check that out, and I'll put a link in the description to that as well. So that's pretty good. Look forward to the rest of that series. Hopefully if we don't die, we'll make it all the way to endgame maps, and it'll be a good, nice, complete guide for you guys, how to progress in a hardcore league, how to gear up your character, and how to create builds that work together. Hopefully they work well. The next one is that tonight, this is in terms of upcoming content, I'm going to be recording my first Monday Musings in a while. A lot of you guys have been requesting that the Monday Musings series makes a return, and it's a series I'm keen to do. I really like it to have a chance to get through some thoughts myself and to share some stuff with you guys, and I've gotten a lot of really good feedback on that series. So tonight's episode is actually based on a request I got from one of you guys. They requested a pretty interesting topic that applies to a lot of gamers. So I'm actually going to have Amy on as a guest for that particular show, and we'll be recording that tonight, and that'll come out either Monday night for a lot of you guys, or maybe Tuesday for some of you guys if you're in Australia, New Zealand, that sort of area. So look forward to that as well. The next thing I've been thinking of doing is, well, I've been planning on doing, I'm actually setting up now, I'm in the motions of setting it up, is I want to start doing death analysis videos of high-level players that die in Hardcore League, or, or just high-profile deaths that show interesting game mechanics. Now, I'm not going to look at things like people that just died to desync, or people that aren't paying attention, they're drinking some soda or something like that, and the character dies when they're not looking. I don't want to do that sort of thing, but characters, instances where people die to interesting mechanics, like a combination of affixes, or whether something interesting happens that depends on their build and the map they're in, and all of this sort of stuff comes together. I think there's a lot that people can learn from that, and I think it should be really entertaining and educational at the same time. So it's something I'm pretty keen to do. It's something I've been thinking of for quite a while now, so hopefully you guys will enjoy that. I'm just talking to my network legal team about using other people's footage and using a small section of their footage, and trying to get some permission from various people that have this footage, like streamers and things like that, but often they're very hard to get in touch with. They don't tend to check their messages. So if you're a streamer and you're watching this for some reason, check your messages, because I might just be sending you a message about this sort of thing. But hopefully I can get that out to you guys. If everything works out, that could be a cool little series that I do occasionally, basically whenever there's an interesting death that I can do an analysis video on. So that's pretty cool. And that's pretty much it in terms of upcoming content and news. I'm going to just be continuing uploading the Onslaught series with Duke. Going to be continuing just some general guides. Going to try and get my Infernal Marauder guide out. And also on top of that, I'm going to be doing recap videos for my Evasion Ranger that I'm rolling in Onslaught as well. So you guys can see that as a build, as my normal sort of build guide series as well. So in addition to the progressing through the game, you'll also be able to see that as a build by itself, and hopefully that works out because I'm trying to make a pure Evasion Ranger, and it's a bit tricky to do. So yeah, anyway, so let's move into the Q&A, the fan questions. The first one comes from Darksco, and he asks, I'm thinking about rolling an EK Ranger that uses Evasion, Acrobatics, and Phase Acrobatics. Even with Acrobatics, I feel like Physical Reflect will be a big issue. How do you suggest building to counter this? My initial thought was to stack Block Chance, then to use one of the uniques that applies some of your Block Chance to spells, but this doesn't really help mitigating damage if Block and Dodge fail. Any thoughts? So yeah, the new Ranger changes make EK very tempting to go, and they also make Evasion very tempting to go, because there's a lot of changes that go into that. I'm actually going to switch over to, let's see if this works. Oh, bam! Here we go. We've got the passive tree up. So, he's thinking of going, Evasion, Acrobatics, Phase Acrobatics, most likely getting Ondar's Guile as well, because that's pretty much a keystone any Evasion build should be getting. Now, I'm sure the asker of this question, Darksco, already knows this, but for those of you who don't, Evasion and Dodge like this simply won't work against EK. Although it's a physical projectile skill, it's not an attack, it counts as a spell. So normal Evasion, Acrobatics won't work, and Ondar's Guile won't work. So unfortunately, that's not going to help you at all. However, a recent change means that you still get 50% of your armor. Now, you're not going to be wearing any armor-based gear. However, this does mean you can use Granite Flask to help mitigate EK damage a little bit. However, EK tends to do a lot of damage, so I think this is going to be hard to pull off. Now, as he mentions, Phase Acrobatics will help a little bit, 20% chance to dodge spells, but still, that's essentially a flat 20% chance to dodge that incoming damage. So, 4/5 of the time, you're still going to be getting hit by that EK damage as Reflect, which is pretty nasty. And even if you, are using a highly rolled Granite Flask, I don't know if that's going to be enough to mitigate. Now, he mentions using Spell Block, essentially using Unique to convert his Block Chance to Spell Block. I think with a maxed out Block build and Spell Block as high as possible, on top of Phase Acrobatics, maybe. It's going to be very difficult. I really sincerely don't recommend going an Evasion build if you're trying to make an EK Ranger. Unfortunately, it just seems like two things that don't work well together. You're much better off stacking your Evasion and instead converting it to armor through Iron Reflexes, because that's just going to help mitigate that EK damage that does come through. So a lot of EK builds already utilize Spell Block to help with that Reflect damage, because Reflect is a serious issue for EK, and they have a lot of armor on top of that, including Granite Flask, sometimes even Endurance charges to help with that, and Reflect is still an issue for those people. So I think in a pure Evasion EK build, it's going to be very difficult to do. The other thing that's worth mentioning is that pure Evasion takes a lot of skill points to get. You have to come up here, you have to get these. This is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 skill points there, and you have to come down and get Ondar's Guile as well. Now that's quite a few skill points just to get up in this area, and then you also have to go get a bunch of life as well to be able to survive. Yeah, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be really difficult. However, I always encourage people, if they think that they might be able to pull something off, to simply test it, because if we're not testing things that we think, may possibly work, then we're not really going to make any ground in terms of new builds. So, maybe, if you're willing to take that risk that you won't be able to deal with Reflect at all in game Darksco, I encourage you to try it anyway, but it's going to be very difficult. The thing is, sometimes certain builds just have things where it's up to you to not die, and the build's not going to protect you, and that might be one of those cases where you just have to pay attention very much to any sort of physical Reflect. So, we'll switch back over. Bam! There we go. The next question is, it comes from Langsal or Lanzal. For a relatively inexperienced player who's getting to the point of trading for the gear he needs, what is the best way to learn the conversion rates that go between currency items? I've used conversion websites before, but I hear that the information is not the best. Definitely true. Now, a couple months ago, these sites were pretty good, and they were the prime resource used by most people in terms of conversion rate. People would say, check, PoE, EX, or something like that. They'd say to check these sites. However, that's changed. There was a site a while back that was used by most people. It was eventually bought by an RMT company, and ever since then, even though another resource has arose, which was quite good, It just doesn't seem that these guys are very reliable, especially with the new Anarchy and Onslaught leagues happening and them having their own exchange rates. Very, very difficult. So the way I go about finding exchange rates is there's two ways. I leave trade chat open because people often post different different trades they're trying to make. They're trying to trade currency, and I just note down if that happens. I'll just write it on a piece of paper. That's a pretty simple way to go. Next one is if you have someone that you trust, that you know plays Path of Exile, ask them. But you probably wouldn't be asking this question if you had someone like that you could ask. So then the next one is I simply ask people in general chat. Try and get at least 2 answers, because some people will say, this trades at a rate of 8 to 1, and the next guy will say this trades at a rate of 10 to 1. Somewhere it's going to be somewhere between 7 and 11 to 1, and it's not super accurate, but you can start to hone in on a little bit and get a little bit more approximate and close. Another way is pretty much, this is something I use for all trading, is to simply make a trade with someone on a rate you think is good based on those previous things, and then afterwards ask them, what do you think? Do you think that was a good rate? Like, I'm not going to ask for it back or anything, but just in terms of me learning the game, could you tell me whether you thought that was a good exchange rate? And they'll say, a lot of people will go ahead and say, yeah, you probably could have got a little bit more, or that was about right, or that's the limit of, that's the low as I would have went. So you can get a good idea based on that. If you ask nicely, people tend to be nice, and that's the way I found it out. But just pay attention in trade chat to what people are posting. Ask and try and gauge based on different people's answers and try and find an average answer. And if you do know someone, ask them. So that's the main way I go about doing that. The next and final question comes in from Adam, and he asks, have you chosen a Final Fantasy server to roll on yet? And also, are you aware of any servers that Australians might be flocking to? Now, I've heard rumours that a lot of guilds and Australian players are going to the Tonberry server. However, I plan on probably just playing on Cactor. I'm not too worried about that. I love playing with Aussies when that happens, but I think most people that I'll end up playing with will go to Cactor, but I'll keep you guys updated on whether I change. If you are trying to find some Oceanic or Australian players to play with, I highly recommend just searching for some Oceanic guilds. There's 2 that I know of, one's called Oceania and one's called Solidarity. Just give them a Google search and you should be able to find a guild. That'll be the easiest way to find what server a lot of Aussies are going to be playing on, is to simply join a guild full of Aussies and Oceanic players. Yeah, anyway, I'll keep you guys updated on what server I end up rolling on, but probably Cactor. So, as always, send your questions to QnA@ZiggyD.tv. That's the email to send those to. Pretty happy that I got a few questions this week to ask. Good stuff. And if you guys don't send me any questions, I'll just sit here by my lonesome and cry. Anyway, I'm ZiggyD, and thanks for watching.